it's been at least 2.5 years since we had the last update to Roguelands. That was 1.5.1. It introduced a number of new things, being new armor and new weapons, and of course the Ultra Boss is the hardest content in the game. So even all that time after the patch came out, people still ask me, and I've been asked today, right, in 2019, I've been asked what are the best builds in Roguelands, right? So that's what I'm here to say. This is the jankiest tier list you'd ever see. I do actually have a document that Rabbit and I worked on a long time ago, and this is talking about the best builds in the game, and that's the basis for this video because I haven't played in so long. That's all the information I still have, but I have a sneaking suspicion this is still pretty accurate. So this is most of what was suggested from that list. So without any further ado, let's crack on. Yeah, great. You're welcome to the extra jank, by the way. This took no time at all to make. It's going to be garbage. First things first, melee weapons. Should I use them at endgame? Simple answer, no. If you want a melee weapon to use at endgame, look no further than a gauntlet, the air splitter, right? The air splitter itself is a weapon that scales off of strength, but it is a gauntlet. It does look like a sword though, so if you want to use a melee weapon, it's as close as you're going to get. The thing is, Ultra Bosses are too fast, hit too hard. You just can't get close to them long enough to deal enough damage with the melee stuff, especially without combat chips. So unfortunately, the air splitter is a C tier weapon. It's a C tier build because it scales off of strength and it scales off of magic. But magic's kind of your meat and potatoes there, and your side is really your strength. So that being said, it is the best strength weapon in the game for Ultra Bosses particularly. So, you know, have fun with that, everyone, because it don't get better than this. Step 2, it is the Warforged gun. I'm kind of to blame on this one. The Warforged gun was for a while probably the strongest build in the game. This is going back a while though. It's since seen nerfs from the Forsaken Mask nerf. It was an indirect thing that happened to it, and unfortunately it makes it far less usable. And it's just slow, man. It's just a slow weapon now. And it's not down here. It is actually probably just going to be a B tier. It's not anything to write home about anymore. It's the best cannon in the game by far, but you don't really use the firing of the gun. You kind of just use it for its combat chip effectiveness. So it's not great, to be honest. Right, controversy. Yes, controversy. Let's have a look. Sage's staff. Isn't this good one? So, Sage's staff is one of the only staffs in this entire... One of the only staffs in this list. There's 2, I think. And this one, I think most people would say it's up here, but you're wrong. It's A tier. It's not S tier. It cannot be S tier, and I'll tell you why. Staves. Every staff in the game sucks. It's all limited by faith as a stat. This, right, air splitter is going to be your best strength weapon. This, being the Warforged gun, is going to be your best dex weapon. This, being the Sage's staff, is going to be your best faith weapon, except every staff is a garbage faith weapon. I'm telling you right now, there's no reason to use a staff in this game, because faith is a dead stat. I've been saying this for a long time. Faith, if you have any more than 100, is useless. Do you know why? Because even the Sage's staff, the best staff in the game, bar none, exists purely because its scaling for its damage is based off of vitality, a completely different stat that has nothing to do with staffs in general. It's just this one uses it, and it happens to be the second best stat in the game. Vitality is incredible, way more valuable than faith. A lot of different races get a lot more of it than what is available. Even at endgame, your ironclad Sage staff build is pretty bread and butter, pretty easy. Catastrophia's armor is useless, just get as much health as you possibly can, and that's all you need. Faith is an afterthought. Staves suck. So Sage's staff can only ever be A tier. That's true. That means there is something better than it though, because I wouldn't put the S tier on it for no reason. But shh, spoilers. Right. Adjacent to the Sage's staff, we have the Maelstrom. And the Maelstrom works in a similar way. It doesn't scale exactly the same as the Sage's staff does. It's not up here, but it is the second best staff in the game, I'm pretty sure. Basically, it has a much bigger projectile, and therefore it makes it much better for clearing levels rather than fighting bosses necessarily. But, and I'm going to use a dirty word here because it's going to lock in the rest of the video. You ready? It also scales off magic. Ooh! Keep magic in mind. It scales off vitality, faith, and magic. Obviously not all in full, but it's okay. The projectile it produces is pretty big. It can really be useful clearing through Cathedral or something similar. So as it stands, it's a pretty good weapon, but it's not the best. So it's going to be all the way down here in C tier alongside the S-Splitter. It is still a staff. It's really good. I wouldn't judge anyone for using it, but it's magic, and magic is the best stat in the game. I mean that. It's the best stat in the game. Vitality is a distant second, but magic is the be-all and the end-all. So, on that note, let's talk about the ice wall. For some reason, the image on the wiki, where I've ripped all of these from, which is why they all look terrible, by the way, it's called the Ice Whip for some reason. Anyway, the Ice Wall is actually called. This is a gauntlet. Gauntlets are probably the best weapon type in the game. This one, unfortunately, is C tier still because it is kind of an auxiliary thing to do rather than a build to kill a lot of ultra bosses. But the Ice Wall spawns a massive wall of ice, funnily enough, that deals damage to enemies, and it knocks back trash mobs, which makes it probably one of the best weapons in the game. That you can use to clear levels quickly, particularly again the cathedral, or even Whisperwood, something like that, like an end game place. You can clear it quickly before the bosses arrive, especially with ultra boss fights coming up. You don't want to have any other trash mobs to deal with, so you just want to deal with all the mobs first, then the boss. And the ice wall is great to do that. So pretty much taking it to any level of the game is going to be great. End game, early game, doesn't make a difference. If you can get an ice wall and you have a good magic stat, you'll do great. Right. My turn. This is my pick, okay? And it's not a weapon. It's the only thing that's not a weapon on this list, actually. It is Darkfire. Darkfire is my absolute favourite combat chip in the game. Sean made some changes to how Vitality worked a little while ago, which is why Sage's staff is so good, and ultimately he was partly inspired by me on Reddit to stop you, but it scales with Vitality and Magic, and again, these are the two best stats in the game, so if you have a build centered around those, you're going to do great. It's really close combat, so that's not perfect, but it works really well for clearing levels, especially if you're not in any like challenge levels, because the damage it can deal, especially like end game builds, is like over 1,000 on contact, and you pretty much can't be touched by anything with less than 1,000 health, which is incredible. You've just got to worry about range stuff. Anything that's melee doesn't bother you at all. Obviously, it still works against certain ultra bosses very, very well, but not against all of them, because unfortunately they are too quick. That being said, its base damage and its base scaling is amazing. I think this is one of the best combat chips in the game. Nay, the best combat chip in the game. The only thing that's probably on par, I guess, is maybe Bubble, but you can't kill stuff with Bubble. So what's the point? This, solid A tier. And Rabbit and I will argue on that one because she thinks it's B, but I think it's A because it's my baby, and I love Darkfire, and it's honestly one of the best things in the game. I cannot stand by it any more than I already can. But you'll notice now there's a trend. The last three things I've shown have all been to do with magic. And it doesn't stop there because, ladies and gentlemen, we have the 4th Age Gauntlet with the worst picture of all of them right now. So this is a 4th Age Gauntlet. No word of a lie. It's going in A tier. Right, A tier is pretty stacked because these three are probably the things that work together to do the most damage in the game, right? So Sage's Staff, great, scales of Vitality. The Darkfire combat chip scales off of Vitality and Magic, and then the 4th Age Gauntlet, this golden bad boy right here, it scales with W Magic, which means it's really good. The projectile's not that quick because it's a gauntlet as normal, but it has a pretty decent projectile size, so you'll hit things quite a lot, and it deals a ridiculous amount of damage, especially when Magic is super valuable. And this brings me to the be-all and the end-all, the ultimate, the top banana, if you will. Because it's the banana, everybody. It's the banana. Who would have said anything different? Banana, S tier, easy. You want to cosplay Soraka from League of Legends? No problem. You want to sound like a monkey? No problem. You want to deal the most damage in the game from any weapon other than the Dragoon Lance, but obviously that sucks because it's melee. You can use the banana. It's the best weapon in the game. Hands down, no questions asked. If you have the banana in your build, great. Problem is, it lowers your HP, so it does have a bit of a hindrance. But in terms of Roguelands, there's a little something called effective HP. This isn't an official term, it's just something that appears in a lot of different games. And effective HP was very, very heavily influenced, not that long ago, in the grand scheme of things anyway, by the null damage potion. The null damage potion was added and effectively doubles your health pool, whereas the banana normally halves it to 50. As far as I can remember, that might be wrong, but it doesn't make a difference. It's a high risk, high reward item that deals an incredible amount of damage and scales off of magic. Now that is important, we'll revisit that. It scales off magic times 3, so you put all your eggs in one basket and deal a ton of damage for it, which is great. When you pair these builds, particularly the banana, with the null damage potion, you double your effective health back up to 100 as it was at base in the game. That's the most you can normally get, so don't worry about 50 HP. Doesn't make a difference. You can also use Bubble to keep yourself alive for even longer. This is a weapon that doesn't care about mana, so it's fantastic for that. It just deals a ridiculous amount of damage, and it makes you sound like a monkey. If that's not top tier, I don't know what is. It sounds like a joke. If you look at this, you might think it's a joke, but you're wrong, right? So, the banana and the 4th Age Gauntlet, they have something of a conversation because the 4th Age Gauntlet has no drawback, but has 2 times damage. whereas the banana has a lot of, like, a really heavy drawback, a lot of detriments to use, but also has incredible damage output of 3 times magic damage, right? So they are very much in different leagues, but as it stands, the banana is high risk, high reward, although the risk isn't that high anymore, to be honest, because in an ultra boss fight, you're going to die in 3 hits at most anyway, right? So it doesn't make a difference if you have 100 health, if you have 50, you may as well take the extra damage from the banana. So, here's the thing. If you want to play Roguelands in the end game, you just want to play things through, here's what I suggest. Aim for a magic build. A magic Vit build will also work, that's what I normally play with, but a magic build is it is the top banana. For real. I'm saying that twice because I have to reinforce that point. You're going to deal the most damage with magic. Easiest thing to do in the game. Obviously, the other things that are here, like Darkfire, the 4th Age Gauntlet, the Ice Wall, and of course Maelstrom, they can all be used on any magic build, right? They're all useful on any magic build. I would say Ironclad, or I think it's Overseer is the other one, are both probably the best races in the game. I think the only 2 weapons that don't use those races here are the Warforged Gun, which is really kind of just an honorary spot because it used to be the best, but it's really codependent on your head slot, on your augment, and the Air Splitter as well. Air Splitter is still pretty good because it's got that range, but it's just not going to use those same races really. Everything else you're going to use either Ironclad, which would be with Sage Staff and Darkfire, or Overseer, which is for Banana, 4th Age Gauntlet, Ice Wall, and then obviously the Maelstrom as well. A lot of these are focused on clearing levels before you fight bosses, which means you can use Darkfire, the 4th Age Gauntlet, Ice Wall, or Maelstrom, or a combination of those things to clear a level as fast as possible. Then use the Banana to use your precision and your control to be able to beat the bosses as fast as possible, which ultimately is less risky because you have less time to get hit. That's pretty smart. That's 5 head right there. So that's the list. That's it. If anybody ever asks me ever again, hey Jack, what's the best build in Roguelands? At least in 1.5.1, this is it. Magic is your big daddy stat. Your distant second is Vitality, which is also still incredible, don't get me wrong, but it isn't anywhere near as close as Magic with its versatility and the options that you have, available in game for that. The only 2 things that really work with Vitality are going to be Darkfire and the Sage's Staff. I think a combination of those 2 is okay. Just ignore Faith even exists and just make a Magic Vit build. You can use Sage Staff as well. But why would you bother when you can just double down on your Magic and use Banana and the 4th Age Gauntlet for a much safer and still pretty effective little fight, whereas the Banana is still going to be the most damage you can have. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Jank over. Bye-bye.